Welcome to the conference. It's great to see you all here. Some very old faces and old friends. So it's great to reacquaint with you and all the new delegates. Why are you attending conference? Well, it's a great place to network, to renew contacts, for friendship. But primarily, I think it's for a bit of motivation and stimulation. We've got some great speakers addressing you, but it's good to be amongst like-minded people. And the Scottish Family Party really is the only party we can, in good conscience, vote for. And it's important we all understand the direction of travel we're moving in, that we obtain our resources for distribution, for our political work. So, that's, I think, the main purpose, to get reinvigorated and motivated and to be inspired by conference. I want to have a special thank you for Don Marshall, who's the deputy chairman, and he's the first person I met after meeting Richard, who came round to our house. He's always very enthusiastic, and he'll still be an active member of the Scottish Family Party, but he's standing down from his duties as deputy chairman because of his many work commitments. But you'll remember Don. He was the guy that set up the meeting with Swinney, that famous meeting where Richard got the opportunity to ask these questions of the minister about sex education, and that's been viewed so many thousands of times. So for getting into the audience to collar Swinney about this terrible education that's going on in our schools, I mean, just for that one piece of work, he will go down in the history of the Scottish Family Party. So many thanks for that, Don, and all your work as deputy chairman. And I quickly want to thank the committee that supports me in my role as chairman, the sort of senior management group, especially Neil, who administers everything and has done a great job with this conference, has put it all together, got everyone here, and I believe it is the largest conference we have put on for the Scottish Family Party. So we're inspiring and we're growing our sort of ground base of support. Mari for managing the memberships and administering that, and that's quite a job. Alan for running the finances, and he'll be speaking just after me. Phil, the deputy leader, he's really one of the brains on our senior management committee with lots of ideas, very effervescent. The new appointment of Tobias as our campaign manager, and he's gradually growing into that role. Very, very young man, got lots to offer, and it's so good to see so many young people in the audience. And then I do need to thank all the chairs of the regions. We have new chairs. Leroy up in Orkney. Sadly, he can't be here today. A guitarist, very interesting character. Troy Eason in the southwest, and Yuan Morris, who is with us, a farmer up from the northeast, a young farmer, lots of ideas. So it's good to thank them and welcome them in their difficult roles. So a quick political overview. I did say normally the chairman gets fired after a poor set of election results. I said this last year, but I'm still here. And the main reason we didn't have a major election, we had a number of by-elections, and of course the Rutherglen and Hamilton West by-election. Now, our results were disappointing. I mean, we're flatlining in terms of results, but between 1% and 2% of people who turn up at the ballot box vote for us. That's 1 in 50, 1 in 100. In this conference hall, if we're at the shopping centre, 2 or 3 will be Scottish family voters. And that's ignoring, the other 55%, 60% who stay at home and don't turn out to vote. So in fact, the absolute numbers are encouraging. But in terms of the final result, the figures have flatlined. But we're not despondent about that, because I think the big plus points are we get groups of people to turn up, to leaflet, to campaign, very enthusiastic, and with our model of a centralized virtual party model linked with a strong network of regional chairs and regional groups, we're gradually finding our way with this model, and I think it's beginning to work. So strong regions run by strong chairs, guided by a strong center. And of course, when I go through those thanks of the main committee, you know, our main man is our party leader, Richard. And in terms of creating this virtual party and creating all this interest in the party and the social media posts and being alert in terms of developments, you know, he's the real motor of the organization. But linked with our delegated model of regional organizations, I think it's beginning to work. And that brings me on to Rutherglen and Hamilton West by-election. We had a terrific candidate, great candidate, and it's partly the result was undermined by a lot of tactical voting, but we were pleased with the campaign, pleased with the candidate, and I think it showed you what we can do when it comes to the general election sometime next year. So that's the sort of quick political overview for you. The membership, Alan will cover this, but that's been pretty stable. And then policy. You've all got a copy of the new policy document, and at the heart of the policy document remains protecting the family, promoting marriage between a man and a woman, and being pro-life. So we're the only party that's unambiguously pro-life within Scotland. So once again, as a matter of conscience for most of you, this is the only party you can vote for. So read the booklet, understand the policies. There's some exciting policies there, but we must know that our sort of main enemy, this is not just a movement in Scotland. The enemy that wants to destroy the family has been doing this probably since the French Revolution. And of course, we know the model was Marxist theory, which has re-emerged in cultural Marxism. But Marx wanted to destroy the family, saw it as oppressive, and to substitute the state and Uncle Joe Stalin as a sort of a parental model for children. And the children in communist Russia were encouraged to betray their parents. Pro-life, abortion, the family is being killed by abortion at home, and care not killing, and the pro-life groups will understand this. The vast majority of abortions take place within the family, within the home. It's not surgical abortion, it's medical abortion at home. This is a disgrace, and that's all been sneaked in during lockdowns. And so that's something that happens in the domestic environment. And Marx, we all know Marx said that God and religion was an opium of the people, and we see this gradual destruction of church groups and a desire for the brotherhood of man and a sort of humanistic religion replacing God. So we're trying to protect the family with our policies and demonstrating the benefits of family life, the benefits of marriage, and the benefits of unambiguously protecting life from conception to natural death. So next year, the big thing is to get these policies better understood by the electorate, to table candidates for the Westminster elections across all of our regions. And I do encourage anyone, especially the younger ones, think about your development by standing as a candidate. Wonderful way to learn about the hurly-burly of politics, and it looks very good on your CV. So all the students here, have a go, because we'll train you, we'll help organize the campaign, we'll run with you and support you. So if you've got any inkling to go down that track, speak to your local chairman, speak to people here during the coffee breaks. So in conclusion, it's been a good year. I've been proud to be chairman and to see this growth within the regions, see our ability to put up a strong campaign in the by-elections, leafleting, promotion, social media campaigns. We're starting to look like a political party. And Richard told us to stand up here and make sure you look like a politician. Now, I don't know whether Alan's look is going to be, it's going to quite fit the model, but thank you to everyone. Thank you for all the efforts during the last year. And let's go for the Scottish Family Party.
Well, good morning, everyone. And since I'm in Glasgow, we'll steal a wee bit of Francie and Josie. Hello there, Chinas. I'm extinguished to meet your distinguished acquaintance. Anyway, my job really today, and by the way, the get-up, everybody admires that flowery shirt. They really do. And every time they do, I compliment my wife on her choice because she bought it for me. However, today, I think I'm wearing the right duds. And it's her fault if it's no right. With regard to the finances of the party, our accounting year runs from 1st of January to the 31st of December, but for the purposes of today's presentation, I've done a 12-month calculation from the 1st of November 22 to the 31st of October, which just passed. I had this a slide presentation, but I don't think it's going to work terribly well because it's not kind of in the format that I had set it up. And so I might just leave it for that and hope that you can listen. Maybe you want to write things down, I don't know. So in that 12-month period, the total membership contributions for the year were £40,086. And then donations on top of that amounted to £5,518, giving a total income for the 12 months of £45,604. Now, those of you who are either sharp enough to remember or notice, this is actually a wee bit less than the previous 12 months. The reason for that is fairly simple, because we were involved in an election that year, and we did a crowdfunder as well as received extra donations to help fight the election. The average monthly membership contribution presently, or in the last 12 months rather, is £3,340. Our total expenditure for the year was £42,991. So we're just a little bit ahead of the game over the year, but I'm pleased to report that we have maintained a healthy bank balance throughout the year, and it's currently standing around £8,000, which it's been for most of the year. So we're kind of keeping our heads above water quite nicely. Earlier this year, your Leadership Council spoke in terms of fielding candidates in every Scottish constituency, that's easy for me to say, in the next Westminster elections. To do that, we would need funding of somewhere in the region of £60,000. Well, when I heard that, I was flabbergasted. In fact, I go as far as to say my flabber has never been so gasted. But anyway, it just seemed an unimaginable sum to try to raise. However, and I've got a couple of howevers for you today to put to you. The first one is that since then, the decision has been taken not to field candidates in all constituencies, but to focus on maybe 12 or so. So whew, that's a relief. However, my next however, I'm going to just tell you a bit about my own situation here. My wife and I decided that we'd have a wee bit of a clear out. So I went in the cupboard upstairs and found my trombone. And I realized that this poor trombone has never felt my breath in its tubes for about 5 years. So I thought, there's no much point in hanging on to this. I'm 76, I'm not likely to take it up again. I stuck it on eBay, and I got 150 quid for the trombone. So, flushed with success, I had a rake around the shed. And out in my garden shed, it's a big shed, I came across a 5-horsepower Honda engine that I used to use to drive a piece of equipment that I no longer had. So I stuck the 5-horsepower Honda engine on eBay, and what happened? I got another 150 quid. So this was a bit of an epiphany for me, because I thought to myself, if 400 of our members could raise £150, any good mathematicians? 60 grand, 60,000. If 400 of our members could raise 150 quid by having a rake around their shed or their attic and finding 2 or 3 things that they could flog on eBay, you know, it's costing you nothing. The stuff's lying there rotten or rusting or whatever anyway. Isn't that amazing? When I thought in those terms, I thought, it's just that easy. Whereas my initial reaction to £60,000 was, can't be done. But there we are. You know, it can be done, and it can be done pretty easily as well. So join the 400 by 150 club. We'll call it the 400 by 150 club, and see if we can raise this £60,000 for funding the party. You know, the constituency that I live in is Liberal Democrat. When we first lived there, it was Conservative until Ming Campbell came along, and ever since Ming Campbell, it's been, what do you call them? Oh, Liberal Democrats. Anyway, we get things through the door from them, leaflets, newsletters, I don't know how many times a year, but it's probably 4 or 5 or 6 times a year, regularly, these things. That takes a lot of money, but they're in our face all the time. And if we want to get people elected to the Scottish Family Party, we need to be in their face, in the voters' face. We need money to do it. And there's no other way to do it than funding, have the cash to produce. So in addition to being a member of the 400 by 150 club, I invite you to consider, and my phone's ringing, I think. Somebody's phone's ringing anyway. I'd invite you to consider the topic of inflation and give some thought to perhaps just boosting your monthly contributions up a wee bit. We'll never have too much money in the party. Thank you.
So here we are. So our party is growing. We're attracting new local leaders and young local leaders, as you can see. And I'm delighted to introduce 2 of our local chairmen who have very bravely agreed to be interviewed by an amateur interviewer. So who knows what I'm going to ask them, what I'm going to throw at them. Let's begin. Yuan. Right, okay. So Yuan's from the northeast, or more precisely, he hails from well, at the moment he's living in the Speyside area. He's going to tell you something about himself and what brought him to the Scottish Family Party, and then I've got a couple of questions for him. And he's only got 10 minutes, which is, I'm sure, long enough, isn't it? Great stuff. So, Yuan, tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, I think 10 minutes is enough to hear from me, so we'll just get started then. So I'm Yuan Morris. I'm a farmer and accountant up for the northeast of Scotland. I've lived there more or less my whole life and grown up on a farm. It gives you a unique perspective into the world and economics and all these different aspects of life. I mean, just last night at 1 o'clock in the morning, my hand was this deep in a cow rescuing a calf. I'll keep the details out of it, but you know, it's a full-on life. So I do the accountancy. I also have the farm that I'm on now and again part-time. We've also got a B&B up in Whisky Country that we rent out through Airbnb. That's come under attack recently, but I'll leave that for later. Growing up on a farm, I grew up with two sisters, so there was 3 of us. And they say in farming that you need at least 3 kids. You need 1 to be an accountant, you need 1 to be a lawyer, and you need 1 to be a vet. That way you never have to pay anyone else. I think that's enough for me. Go on ahead.
Yeah, that's not fair. First I've got Niall Fraser, and now I've got Ewan. I mean, you don't want to hear from me now. More from Ewan. Let's go. So what inspires you to volunteer as a party organizer in the Northeast? What brought you into the family party? What was the policy?
I would say what brought me into the family party was the 2021 election, when that first leaflet came through the door. And I think this is how a lot of other folk here got started with the party. That leaflet, you're going down all the issues. We're pro-family, we're pro-life, we're against gender ideology being taught to the kids in schools. And it's just kind of tick, tick, tick. Everything on this list is something I agree with. And being pro-life is a really important part of politics to me. It's one of those things I couldn't find another party that seemed to kind of click on with this issue. And it's something that seems to be absent from politics until the Scottish Family Party filled that void.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's great. And so, what are your your hopes, say, for the region, or your hopes for bringing people together? Because we're here, we want to inspire, we want to grow, and we want to eventually win. So, what are your ideas on that front, and what are the policy ideas? I think you've mentioned before some of the issues around the economy, and the taxation.
Aye, so you come to the family party, you expect to hear our key policies: pro-family, pro-marriage, pro-life. But we've got an entire book sitting over there full of policies ranging on every single issue, more or less. Something that I want to see changed up with us is every single industry in the Northeast is under attack at the moment. I mean, we've got the tourism industry. Short-term lets has more or less put the tourist industry in the Highlands into decline. We've got the tourist tax coming as well. It's just going to absolutely wreck the economy up with us. You've got whiskey. When you buy a bottle of whiskey, almost 2/3 of that cost is going straight into the coffers of the government in the form of tax. And, if we can't support a multi-billion-pound industry in our own country, God help us if we're wanting to sell it abroad. We've also got fishing, the highly protected marine areas. That was a disaster from the start, once again brought in by the Greens, who we didn't elect. And that is basically that kind of policies, the anti-business policies that are harming folk up in the Northeast and in the Highlands. I mean, oil and gas, even, it's under attack at the moment. We're relying on oil and gas every single day to power our cars and heat our homes and keep everyone moving. So it's just something I want to see change, is this anti-business policy.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Ewan. Thank you very much, Ewan. I think you can see there we have a young chairman in the Northeast who's going to inspire other young people, who's going to inspire families, inspire businesses, and hopefully that's going to grow the party. So thank you, Ewan. And now our next local party chairman perhaps doesn't need as much introduction as Ewan. Johnny Richardson spoke last year at the party conference, and we've seen him locally as a candidate in elections. So welcome, Johnny. So I think John is well used to public speaking in his ministry as well as in his candidacy. So I'm going to ask Johnny just to introduce himself. Okay.
Don't say that, goodness me, put me under pressure, but Yeah, my name's Johnny Richardson. It's such a privilege to be among you all, it really is, yeah. You just don't realise what you're part of here. You don't realise the trailblazing you're doing for the truth and for my own generation. So it's wonderful that you're all here. Wonderful, it's such a good attendance. But anyway, yes, I'm the kind of South Lanarkshire area as a local branch chairman. Yuan, I just met last year. He's a lot more fiery than he was last year. He's great, fiery farming. That's what we need. So yeah, I'm local branch chairman for the kind of South Lanarkshire area. If you're in that area, please feel free to come up and introduce yourself. I'll try and seek you out as well. But that's my own role in the party. Yeah.
Great stuff. So I want to ask Johnny this similar sort of questions about what in. Yes, yeah, we got James Mitchell down here. You're in Motherwell, aren't you, James? Yeah. Great stuff. So, what inspires you to volunteer for the party, and what have been the highlights for you the last year or so? Sort of.
Yes, there's many things that inspire me about this party. Pro-life is such a huge issue, as my friend here, Ewan, just already alluded to. But the ways I've been active is I was at a Pride Perth rally, which was extremely interesting. Being there, I don't know if some of you may have seen the footage. It was brilliant to be there. I found it very positive, actually. And we've also had the Rutherglen by-election, which our good man Niall Fraser has been leading, and that's just wonderful. My dad's David Richardson; he's been heavily involved in that as well. So yeah, there's in various ways we've been active. I've been active in the party, and I'm looking forward to having more meetings and seeking out the right opportunities, the right timing to get out there and promote the party. Yeah.
Okay, Johnny, just to ask Johnny another question about, I mean, there are our core policies or our headline policies around education and the family, but I just wonder, just to throw him a curveball, are there other areas you think we should be looking at as well as those areas, concentrating on? Where do you think our support's going to grow most of all? Yeah,
so young people is a huge thing. I think I was standing up here last year and I said, raise your hand if you're under 25 or something like that. It was only you and somebody else, some other fella in the crowd. And so we've got so many more young people here, which is just so great. It really is. We've been really blessed. We've got an opportunity. Our church is based in the West End of Glasgow, and we're a very active church, we are. And uni students everywhere, young people everywhere, walking just out and around the vicinity of our own church. So there's huge problems with school, as many of you will be aware of what's been taught in schools. And that's an area that we need to address. And even at that Pride Perth march or rally that was going on there, I spoke to so many young people there, just slightly younger than me, and they were extremely broken, young people. And they engaged with me. They really had a conversation, in amidst the chaos and the hostility that was going on at the same time. I was engaging in this conversation with, 6, 7 young people in front of me. And their thinking was revolutionized as I spoke to them. They have this idea from schools, maybe from social media, that conversion therapy is a shock therapy, you're electrocuting somebody or something crazy like that. But once I explain things to them, and I've got 2 sisters who are homosexual as well, and I'm saying that this goes through. I can't even talk to my sisters about if they wanted to convert. And they were like, well, that's completely wrong. And I was like, well, I'm glad you said that, and this is what we're going to be banned from doing. So there's a huge ignorance, unfortunately, but they're willing to engage, young people, and they're starving for the truth. They're starving for the truth. This whole idea that everything goes, And there's no such thing really as objective truth or absolute truth. Is nonsense. And the young people see it. And they have nowhere to go. They're starving for purpose and for truth. And so I was really, that's why I found the experience so positive, but hopefully I kind of answered your question there.
Thank
I
you.
went
No,
off
that's
tangent.
great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, I think that's us. So thank you so much to both our candidates for our local chairman for being willing to come up and to present themselves and hopefully you can get a personal word with them later on at the next break and get to know them. So thank you again. It's inspiring. It does lead me to think that we're being inspired, that the party's growing. That I'm sure if Johnny asked his question about under 25, you might get more hands this time. So. Do you want to try it?
Yeah. Under 25, put your hands up. Oh, fantastic.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Absolute pleasure to be here. So we'll just get stuck right into this, and we will start with Gareth Kirk and his introduction.
Good afternoon. Hopefully that's not too loud. My name is Gareth Kirk. I'm from the bigger branch chairman. Well, I'm the bigger branch chairman. And the reason why I'm here today, the reason why I'm here today is not because I want to be, but because I was compelled to be. So in the clause still stands, when good people do nothing, bad things happen. And I think that's exactly what we're saying here. You can see what happened with Richard and Mari. They're saying the alternative is far worse. To do nothing is far worse. And so I realized this very real, and as you can see, part of the discussion, I realized that I, in my workplace, became at risk. And I realized that the discussions that I have, and some friends of mine have lost their jobs because of the views they had, and I shared those same views. And so for me, I realized I needed to move the discussion from being a personal one about me and my views to being one about a political discussion. And that gave me the security and gives me the security to say, I stand by these views. And these are not just my views, but they're a political view. And that actually gives me the security I need and the confidence I need to say, I need to be included. I have the right to be here. You have your political views, I have mine. And this really gave me the courage to stand up. And I think if you look now, and I look, I now have 2 children, and I look at the society, and I am not alone. There are many people, I hear it often, there are many people who say, I am afraid for my future. I am afraid mainly for the future of my children. And I can say that I am afraid for Scotland's future. It is not right what is going on, and we have to be the people who can stand up and respond.
Excellent stuff, Gareth. Thank you. Okay, we'll now have Hamish.
Hello, I'm Hamish Goldie-Scott from the Eastern Borders. I want to just briefly tell a story about an issue that arose recently in my community in mid-Berwickshire. It illustrates the fact that there seems to be a blindness to the needs of children and a problem of focusing unduly on the priorities of adults. But the good news from this story is that I think it shows that just by drawing attention to that, it is possible to change attitudes. So, in our area, there are several wind farms, and they provide grants to worthy local causes. And part of the role of the Community Council, on which I serve as a member, is to vet those applications and to choose which ones to recommend for funding. So 2 months ago, there was an application that came in for a nursery, a local nursery, to cater for 0 to 3-year-olds. And the aims, as stated in the application, was to provide employment to the people staffing the nursery and to support parents in the area who want to go to work and not look after their children at home, but to have them in this nursery from the age of 0 to 3. So that was an all application. What was unusual was that this was supported by an independent expert assessment of the application, which was done very professionally, and it gave scores according to different criteria for the application. So it gave scores for the need, for the planning, for the impact it was going to have, and so on. What was striking was that in neither the application nor the expert assessment was there any mention of the impact on the children. The impact was summarized saying the beneficiaries are the parents who want to work and want to live in the area. It's to allow them to work in the area if they want to work as well. So that was a bit of a surprise. No mention at all of the children. But it actually wasn't a surprise because in the expert assessment, if they'd done their job, which I think they probably knew about, if you look at the evidence for the impact on children's outcomes from going to nursery, preschool nursery, rather than being at home, on average, the data shows very clearly, independent of social background and so on, that the outcomes for almost all criteria are worse for the children who go to the nursery. So that was the context. And by the time I was reading the application, most other members of the Community Council had given it a ringing endorsement. This is fantastic, we need this, and so on. Now, as it happened, I actually supported the application because of the underlying economic benefits. I really liked the fact that there was a focus on the quality of the intervention. There was a focus on community involvement, parental involvement, and grandparents, and there's some very good things in there. So I supported it. But in doing so, I flagged the fact that it was surprising that there was no reference to the impact on the children. And I suggested that in future, the Community Council should look kindly on applications which would support parents who choose to look after their children at home. So the reaction to this was very interesting. It was mixed. On the part of some, it was just bewilderment. What? Why are you looking at the needs of children? That's not what it's about. But for a few of them, it was of appreciation that I'd simply by pointing to the facts and the very good research, I had highlighted an issue which they simply hadn't thought about. So I would just want to encourage all of you, in all that you come across, just to be alert to these situations. And you don't have to make a big fuss about it, but just by shining a light on the facts, you can encourage evidence-based policy, which is, after all, what we're about, and make a difference.
Thank you very much, Hamish. That was an excellent story. We'll now move on to Belinda.
Okay. I'm Belinda Brown. I'm a supporter from London, and I'm just talking about one aspect. I've chosen something which I think is important to focus on, and the saying that comes to mind. That saying, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And I think that we're at a point in time where actually life, in a few years' time, I just think it's going to get very tough. I think socially and economically, that's the direction that we're heading in, that things are going to become really tough. And I think that we live in a very feminized society, which is reflected in the high levels of intervention in our private lives that's just taken for granted. It's very much part of the nanny state, and I think it is actually a result of decades and decades of feminism. And I think that where we need to really be thinking about now is actually, for the benefit of us all, is making society more robust and increasing the agency, influence and responsibility of men. And I think that's something we really need to think about. And, there are lots of really important benefits of doing this. So, for example, rates of marriage, I've spoken about this lots of times before, but, rates of marriage and numbers of children, which is a big issue for the Scottish Family Party. We all know about the demographic issues, are directly linked to male employment. So if we want more marriage and more children, male employment should be absolutely a top priority. And, we've had, women have for decades now have had choice about what work they want to do. That's no longer an issue. The gender pay gap is no longer an issue. The choice that women no longer have, which touches on what you were saying, the choice we no longer have is to be able to stay at home and look after our children. What facilitates that choice is decently employed men with And I also think we desperately need to heal the rift which has been created between men and women after decades of feminism. And I think that's much more likely to happen under a more male-led robust society. So, and I think that all of that, male employment, high levels of marriage, more children leads to greater greater social stability, greater productivity. There was a nice little story, apparently when there was this big strike, women's strike in Iceland not long ago, and I don't know, a couple of thousand women went on strike. Apparently productivity didn't change at all, which I thought was quite interesting. So, in my ideal world, that's what I set out to think, what was my ideal world look at. We'd look at the ways in which the education system is really failing boys right from the beginning all the way through. So I think that we really need to look at ways in which the education system could be made more male-friendly. I don't know how that could be done. Maybe it's having more emphasis on studying scientific and technical subjects. Maybe it's more male teachers. The idea would be to create more equality, not sameness between boys and girls, but more equality between boys and girls. And in my opinion, once basic qualifications have been obtained, once you've got your, good maths and good English, if a young man wants to go out and work, he should be fully facilitated to do so, even, at the age of 16. He should have there should be apprenticeship training available, there should be skills training available, and if a young man wants to go out at 16 and work, he should be facilitated to do so. And then when the young woman comes out with her university degree, he'll already be earning loads more than her. And we've had, and I think, there's been, over the decades that we've had so much money invested in all these soft areas, sort of harder, RSC, all these things that we don't need, all these things that actually fund women in all these rather not very helpful jobs, actually quite destructive jobs, destructive of the family. So I'd like to see all the money that's invested in social services or RSE or things that we don't need invested in businesses, in business and industry. I noticed, for example, that Munros, these big vehicles, Scotland's now producing these big vehicles. That will be, that sort of thing, and the farming thing, because this is what we need to look more at male employment. We've been really good at encouraging female types of employment that don't really increase productivity. And then all the economic issues, which I probably have spoken about, but, you are more eligible for council housing, you are more eligible for benefits, etc. If you don't have a father around, that needs to be turned around. So housing is available, benefits are available if you do have a father around, and a whole benefit and economic system which is focused on marriage. And lastly, one more thing, men come out of prisons very thoroughly trained and educated, like that should be a real focus. Okay, that was what I had.
That's great, Linda. Thanks very much. Really a lot of passion in that speech there. So now we have a statement from Phil Tanzer, who was originally meant to be down from the Highlands, but there's some good news as to why he's not been made available this week, which we'll cover in the statement and also afterwards. Dear supporters of the Scottish Family Party, I have bad news and I have wonderful news. The bad news is that I am not able to attend this year's conference, even though my wife and I were really looking forward to it. The wonderful news is the reason why I can't be at the conference this year. On Friday, just minutes after midnight, my second daughter, Grace, was born. A few weeks early, but happy and healthy. When I first started supporting the Scottish Family Party, I was still far away from having my own family. But now, since my daughters are born, I can see the need for our party even more. I am afraid to raise my children in this country that I love so much. I am afraid of sending my children to school where they would be told that they are victims and oppressed just because they are half black, where they would be pushed into sexual and environmental ideologies. I am afraid of the government questioning our competence to parent just because we are faithful Christians. Afraid of a so-called conversion therapy ban that would restrict me from talking about my past to anyone. Afraid of a legal and social system that intentionally discriminates against boys, men and fathers. I am afraid of this country that I love so much. For the sake of this country, our communities and children, we have to stand for a conservative future of Scotland. The Scottish Family Party needs to be Scotland's future party. So with that being said, I would like to extend, on behalf of the Family Party and everyone in attendance here today, a massive congratulations to Phil Tanzer and his wife on the birth of their second child. I'm sure they're much over the moon just now and just buzzing to get into parenting their second child, which should be much more comfortable than the first child, because we've all got friends that have got many children. The first one's the hardest, you know, so congratulations to them. So now we'll move on to questions. So if anyone has any questions for the panel, Neil, come round with the microphone.
Hi, do you hear me okay? Yeah. No, it's just a simple question. It's the lady who was speaking. It's just to say that she's right regarding families. Families need strong men. They do. There's enough of the sort of the weak, lily-livered going around in the public eye and whatever, and we see men literally without a backbone at times and political positions of power. But this is just a simple aside to what this lady was saying, and it's basically backing up. As a father of 3 children, they're all grown up now. My oldest said to her mum, my daughter said to her mum recently, you know, Mum, when I was looking for a husband, and now I had quite, you can imagine as a father with a daughter, with daughters, 2 daughters and a son, you can imagine what you're like with guarding your daughters. You're very protective, let's say, when boys start coming round. You let them know when it's a suitable hour to go because you're a light sleeper, that sort of thing. But the thing is, you're right, because I would have considered a relationship with my oldest that was quite terse. She's very strong-willed, very feisty. But here was the thing. She said to her mum, when I got married, I looked for the attributes that I seen in my dad. And that's important. That's really important. Though we disagreed on a whole host of issues, at the bottom line, there was that seed sown in there. And she was looking for a man, unfortunately, similar to me, as I keep saying, I'm a one-off.
Do you want to say anything to that? Or, okay. Question. Yep.
Thank you. I know everybody here is probably not possibly Christian, right? But I understand that majority of people will probably respect what I'm going to say. Is there an onus on the church to provide more schools for people to be taught basic truths, right? Faith aside for a moment, dare I say that, but like, a man's a man, let children learn maths, do you know what I mean, in English at schools, rather than being taught indoctrinations. We've seen the numbers. I was at a family party event at Denny Baptist. The numbers for applications for people wanting to go to Melville Knox, Reformed Christian School, and even some Roman Catholic schools, which are still teaching children the truth of maths and English and not indoctrinating them, has went through the roof. And I'm sure people here that might not even be from a faith background, but hold moral, traditional views, would feel far safer sending their children to one of those schools than to one of the basically abominable schools that are being taught today. I wonder if the people believe that the church has got a bigger role to play.
So does the church have a bigger role to play in all these things that we've been talking about, especially education? Do you want to answer that?
So definitely, I've seen the push. If you think about the decisions parents have to make today, and the decisions are quite simple. They look at the state schools and they see the absolute chaos going on. And I on Thursday asked the question to a bunch of high schoolers, "Do you feel safe?" And they said no, and they proceeded to tell me what's going on, which with shock and horror, it's far worse than I could imagine. And the issue they have is anyone bringing up a child would have to think, what do I do? And this is where they start looking, well, are there any church-led schools? That's the almost middle ground. The danger is, and you can even see that, Christian Care, Christian Concern, Christian Concern, we're looking at the protection of somebody, a teacher, in a Christian, I think she's a Catholic school. And they're busy fighting for that she keep her job, and listed 3 other people who had lost their jobs. So there's no guarantee in those schools. So for me, I think that I would like to say the answer is yes. If those churches were willing enough to embrace the need and actually begin to support much more strongly the views for which they stand, the rock on which they stand as their views, and actually take hold of that. But I do fear that is probably not the answer. Anyone else?
Just add a few things to that. We heard from Philip Tanzer's words that he fears for what to do about school for his kids. I know people who have left Scotland because they didn't want their kids to go to school in Scotland. Now, about a year or so ago, Neil organised a conference in Edinburgh, education, and I think it was aimed mainly at Christians, but there were 2 sort of streams. One stream was that the schools are so bad, we have to withdraw from them and have either homeschooling or church schools. The other view was that the schools are so bad, we have to have more Christian teachers in the schools. And what was great about that conference is that it brought together those 2 streams. There's no one solution to this problem. There's a whole range of different solutions, and different people could be led in different ways. And I believe at that conference we heard that there was some new guidance being prepared by some group. So there is good work going on, and so I'm again very hopeful that it's worth persevering with this, because the tide will turn.
Just one thing to add. Our policy book has a phenomenal thing about completely revitalizing the school education system. And I was reading through in preparation for today, and I was like, this is so logical around giving teachers authority, and it's needed. Even its pupils recognize that.
One more question. Yep. Sorry, time. So many questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you for what you said there about encouraging strong masculinity. I think our boys are starving for that. I think they're starving for responsibility, meaning and purpose. Myself and my colleague here, Owen, later in life, I'm almost 60. A few years ago, I came to the point of getting into radio presentation, went to college, did an HNC, went into the HND. I was taken aside by a manager there and told that as an older man, I would be demonized. I was constantly accused of bullying. And I was told the accusations were false and that my conduct was impeccable. I then went to university where I met my colleague Owen to study radio and TV. And we both challenged the positive affirmation ideology. And we both ended up in a situation where we were suspended. Owen's since gone on to do another degree. I've suffered from stress. I had to take myself out of it. I'm currently finding voluntary positions where I'm finding myself affirmed. What encouragement can you give to people like me who like to present themselves as positive masculinity, assertive and truthful, and would say, someone feeling bullied or someone feeling intimidated or uncomfortable is not my responsibility? And secondly, how might I then encourage and empower younger men to be the same and be upstanding members of society? Thank you.
Great. Can we take another question and then you just answer both of them together? Is that okay? Yeah, one more.
What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. I was given the book that Richard Lucas wrote regarding the sex education within the schools, and I was absolutely shocked. So I got another 5 books, and I have passed them out to different people with families and to school teachers. I've been to my MSP, I've been to my MP about it, and I can say without any question, there's not one of them knew what was being taught in the schools. And it's an absolute abomination that the Scottish Government is not transparent about what is being taught in the sex education in the schools. They may have it on a website, but in this busy life that people live, they don't have time to go onto websites and check this out. And they should be totally forced to be transparent and let parents know exactly what their children are being taught. It's an utter abomination.
I just keep doing what you're doing. I kind of take advice from another man, I mean, you just have to keep doing what you're doing. You know, it's really rough out there. Don't capitulate to all the nonsense, you know. I feel bad saying that because at the end of the day, you're going to be the one getting a raw deal for not capitulating, you know, but I'm afraid that's what's got to be done. But I'm just sorry, I can't help more than that. About sex ed is more sort of my territory. Actually, I've just, because we're pushing this through with, Miriam Cates is trying to push this through, that parents should be able to see what their children are being taught in school. And parents just don't know. Actually, I just wrote 4 articles for, just a quick plug, if I may, 4 articles for the Conservative Woman, where I wrote it because parents just don't know what is happening in schools, and that's why I wrote all of these. I actually wrote 7, but the editor thought people had enough after 4. But it just wound me up so much. You know, I don't know how to educate people about this. Everybody needs to know what their kids are getting, and they just don't know, and it is an absolute abomination.
That's right. Well, that's all we've got time for, it appears. So a round of applause for our 3 panellists.